Welcome back to A Plus Parents, everyone. And you meet people and then they have a story and then you get the story and then someone else, you can run into them again. I'm going to come back to what I mean by that because I got a call from my mom about our guest today, and her name is Kim Hannon. So I'll tell you the story how I get a call from my mom, which is actually a riot, which is really fun. So first of all, I want to tell you about Kim because Kim has done something. When you think about co-ops and the way that co-ops work, Kim took a different approach to co-ops, and I love what she's doing. And she really integrates community into the way that they do the co-op. And I'm going to have her share a lot about that with you. But here's some things to know about Kim. So she's so first of all, I think a good way to say is that she's a homeschool mom. She's a business person. She's a wife. She's a mom, and there's even a family dog that if the dog doesn't get mentioned in this podcast, then everybody's in trouble, including me. So we'll make sure we'll talk about Oliver, the golden-doodle. So, so think about, managing everything, right? So kind of like a juggling master. And as she's going, kind of going through life that way, right? She and her husband, Chris, have always homeschooled their kids from the very beginning. They have 3 kids. They have been, for 23 years, which is amazing, right? 3 kids, Lucas, Jacob, and Alivea, and the golden doodle, Oliver. So Chris and Kim, they both are avid members of the church. They volunteer at church, and that's actually how their co-op got birthed. It was actually something that they decided to do through the church, kind of a mission through church. And their church is a Generations Christian Church in Tampa, Florida. So, which is kind of my backyard and home area. So it's just super cool to have Kim here. So when Kim started homeschooling, she started with her oldest now, who is 13 right now. But 10 years ago, she started doing homeschooling when he was still kind of getting ready for the the preschool area. It's like, nope, I'm going to go from home and go from there. So the idea then of community, and I'm going to have her tell the story how she started their program called Salt of Trinity, and how it got going. And it started in 2016. And this year, they launched something which for me was super exciting because they put together, it's called the Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference, or TBHC as the acronym. And it was the inaugural year this year in Tampa, Florida. And it gave an opportunity for just the local community to come out and find out about homeschooling. And there was quite a few people that were new to homeschooling that came to find out, seasoned people that came to find out, some of the local co-ops that do the typical kind of, having courses and classes and those kinds of things, but not that community approach that Kim does. So there were people there. Our staff was out there. My buddy Nicole, the math lady, was there. So it was that's actually that's one of the ways we found out about you, because Nicole was telling me that that she was going to be there, and I was like, oh my gosh, we got to find out about this. So that's how we got there. And then of course, it's funny because I get this call from my mom. And actually, I'm going to have you tell the story, Kim, because it's even funnier when you shared with me too about how that whole thing happened, about how you met my mom, which is kind of fun. And my mom lives in the Largo, Florida area.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. You've got dozens of projects going on. You're an avid reader, and if you can be, you're a poolside reader. So get out by the pool, read a book, and just kind of enjoy life when you have that break in time, which probably doesn't come around very often. So
Not very often.
first of all, Kim, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for making
you.
your
Very
day work
excited to
to
be
be
here.
here. Yeah. All right. So let's start with my mom, because I know everybody's already like, "What? How did you meet my mom?" Right. So
So crazy, right? So Chris and I are independent insurance brokers. We own our own business. And one of the things we do through our business is networking with our clients in different communities where senior citizens live. So we were at one of our locations and having our monthly coffee and donuts, hanging out with everybody, talking. And it was probably about a month or so before the conference. So I had so many things to do. And I was kind of, in a rush that day. And I mentioned about this big event that I was hosting. So they were kind of asking about it. And I was like, oh, no, not insurance. It's for homeschool, actually. And your mom chimes in. She had just moved recently. I had just met her
right.
the month before. And she's like, oh, my son's involved in the homeschool world. He runs this online math program. I'm like, okay, not thinking much of it initially. And then I made the connection of her last name, and she said Dennis. I'm like, well, you're Mr. D's mom? Are you kidding me? Like, and no one really got it, but I'm like, he's famous in the homeschool world. Like, that's a big deal. So it was just really funny. Like, it was unbelievable. What a small world. It was
Oh,
just a cool connection.
it was great, and it was
Yeah,
great for my mom because she's like, she got to be part of that conversation and be like, well, so it's kind of fun. It's like, fun when we get to brag about our kids. I like to brag about my
absolutely.
kids, and
Oh, she
my
was
mom still
bragging.
likes to brag about me. So it's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
So really good. Yeah. She's
yeah,
super happy to be back in Florida too. So she was up in Pennsylvania and it was time to, she wanted to get back to warmer weather. So she's happy to be.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Well, you mentioned that you and Chris work in the insurance business. So
yeah,
tell us about your background because you guys have been together for a long time. You work together, right? Which is
yeah,
man, that is really, really awesome. You can do that.
yeah.
What got you into the insurance business and kind of like, just your own background?
I mean, getting into the insurance business was kind of a necessity more than anything. It just got to a point where, as a stay-at-home homeschool mom, a family with one income, it was a field that gave me an opportunity to truly be at home with my kids and completely decide my own schedule when I was available and when I wasn't. But prior to that, I actually went to college for education. So I'm an education major. A lot of people think that being a teacher helps as a homeschool parent, but I think it's actually more of a detriment than anything else
I
because you have
totally
to work so
agree.
hard to overcome that classroom mentality. I
Right.
mean, I have visions of preschool and kindergarten initially that I just had the wrong idea, but that's okay. I overcame that. But I did that for years. I was early childhood and secondary. And then once I had the kids, I've done network marketing and sales and event planning and project management. We started a farmer's market. One of the things that SALT did was start a farmer's market, which is now one of the most vibrant farmers markets in the Tampa area. I mean, you name it. It's kind of one of those loaded questions like asking a homeschool mom what curriculum she uses. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
This particular year, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's awesome. So, you educate, and I say too, I tell people I'm a recovering teacher. That's,
Yeah,
from
for
my
sure.
public school days, right? So I've kind
Yeah.
of like, managed, I made it through, I survived, and here we are. So
Yep.
it's awesome. But, really looking, you've got to have a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit. So all
For
these
sure.
different things you're doing, even starting Salt of Tampa that you did as well.
Yeah.
So how did you know for you and Chris, because you've homeschooled your kids from the very beginning. So what led you to homeschooling? How did you know that was the path?
I was a middle school teacher.
Aha. Okay.
So I
Oh, good.
knew that I did not want my kids in that environment.
Yeah.
um, and it's one of those things where even before we had kids, I knew I wanted to homeschool my kids, but there were so many obstacles in the way. But God just he cleared all of them. Every single obstacle that was in front of us, he got rid of, and just really made the path very clear. Chris was actually not very supportive of homeschooling initially. It was very much one of those, all right, fine, we'll try it this year and see how it goes. We'll try it this year, see how it goes. And it was finally during COVID when he was working from home full time, not able to leave, seeing school happen for us because I mean, we did more school during COVID, I think, than we've ever done combined the rest of the time, right? But he just saw the flexibility in their time and the way that they were learning and the things they were learning and the conversations we had, that he really got on board with it. And he went very quickly from being a doubter to now being an avid supporter of homeschool. He was one of
Mm.
the people leading one of our open forums at the conference this year.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Let's go,
Yeah.
Chris. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. I think sometimes it takes that. You have to see what is it that's actually really, really happening. And,
Yeah.
our family, we started let's see, I think my son was fourth grade when he came home, and then my daughter came home after first grade. And they're 2 years apart. And my son just graduated high school this year. Super excited about that. But
Yeah.
but the first year it was like, okay, well, let's give this a try. And we knew we were going to be traveling. And so, we were going to be traveling overseas as well. And so homeschooling was definitely there. But it wasn't until we really got into the world of homeschooling to really discover what was possible. And
Right.
just, and it's like, my son, I remember he came home, we told him we were going to homeschool him, and he came home and he cried. I don't want to homeschool with my friends, and all that, right? And then by the end of the year, we said, well, do you want to go back to public school? And he cried again. He goes, no.
No,
It was
please
like,
don't
oh,
send me
yeah.
back.
So, we get lots of thank yous, from the kids, because they're very happy that they've been able to do it the way to do. So, okay, so now here's Salt of Trinity, because you've answered a question that oftentimes people deal with when it comes to homeschooling. So just tell me a little bit about Salt of Trinity, kind of like how the idea came to you and what you guys do, because it's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, so when Lucas started kindergarten, I realized that there were several other families at our church who either had already been homeschooling for several years or who were just starting that year along with me. We tried to plan a few field trips, and no one would talk to us because we had no group name that we could attach to our reservation. And we were like, well, that's ridiculous. So we talked to the church, and they worked with us to establish, at that time, it was Homeschoolers at GCC. It was 5 families, and we basically got together twice a month, once to do some fun activities with the kids, all those things like, a Christmas party and St. Patrick's Day party and all those things like they'd be doing if they were in school. And then also for field trips. And over time, we opened up to new members, and we kind of just expanded on what we were doing. And it was mostly people we knew and friends that had joined in. And God really just placed it on my heart that more people needed this, and that we were kind of in our like holy huddle, so to speak. And we opened up the doors, and SALT now is over 100 families annually, supporting. We have events for the moms, events for kids of all ages, events for the dads, events for families together. It's really truly a community. And not only are we a community as a whole, we help our families and our members find their subset community within that, right? Because 100 families, you're not going to get together with 100 families all the time at your house, but it's just really cool to see how God brings people in each year that need something different, and they get that. We're able to fill such a variety of needs just by being available and hearing what it is that people need. He has just walked ahead every step of the way to provide a way for us to be successful. Even back before COVID, we decided we wanted to spend more time outside and planned all our stuff for outside, and then COVID hit. And we're like, okay, well, we don't have to cancel anything because we're all outside. Just the people that God has brought to the organization, all of the skills that we've been able to utilize in our parents, even coming down to the conference, the marketing was all done by one mom who was in marketing her whole entire career, hasn't done it since the kids, and now has this outlet to be able to do something she loves and share a gift with a group of people to support and need in the community. There's just so many amazing stories with connections that have been made, and I just really love seeing the families coming together and seeing these true friendships develop. When I was homeschooling, at first, at one point, my dad asked when I was going to send them to school so they can make real friends.
Right.
I'm still not sure what exactly he meant by that. But to me, the friendships that kids make in a community like SALT are more authentic and genuine than any other friendship, because they're not constrained by location and a friend that happens to live within a certain radius of a school, or because their birthdays are 5 days apart, now they're in different grades and never see each other. Just all those variety of things that can affect friendships. They find people that they connect with because they connect. And at the end of the day, that's really truly where real relationship comes from. So it's just really neat to be able to see that happen and to be able to facilitate that.
Wow, that's awesome. And I get the chance to talk to lots of different homeschool families, and oftentimes we get homeschoolers that have gone on and they just finished college and their career. We ask them about what it was like, and did you ever think about going back to high school? And some of them have, some did a year, whatever that they did. But the thing, all of them has one thing in common that they shared, and it was that the relationships that they had with their homeschool friends are the ones that they still have today. And
Yeah.
they've all said that, and they've all come back and they've said, yeah, these are the people that are still with me. And they're, and I like how you said that, because it's not like who you're sitting next to in class, because there it's not, you don't know that you really have something in common with that person, but they're coming to a community event and they can connect on the thing for their like-mindedness. So that's so awesome. So really cool. All right. So, and for sure, God led us to you, right? Because we found guys, and just because I didn't know that was happening in Tampa. And what's interesting is there's Salt of Trinity is your organization, and then there's Trinity Teach, which is another co-op in the Tampa area. And that started, let's see, I'm going to see, back in 2000, I think 2010, because I was one of the first people there. And so we got our math program there, and I was just getting started. So nobody knew me. Nobody knew. It was just kind of fun, right? To kind of work together like that. But very different concept in that it's more, we're doing classes, doing those things. So it's so great that you're providing something that brings community together. So for people that they feel, oh, we've heard of Trinity, just, there's two in Tampa. So you've got the Salt of Trinity and Trinity Teach. So both really, really awesome. So it's just great. So, you put together the conference, right? And we unfortunately I wasn't able to go, but we have one of our teachers come who came from another local co-op who now works with us, and it's called Lighthouse. Is the co-op that she used to be with and then came over. But she had such a blast, and for me to know, like, it was your first time, this was her first time to speak, and she teaches our live classes, but to do a presentation, she's like, I'm going to be nervous. I go, you're going to be awesome. We watch you, we know how great you are, when you're doing, and so she came back, and we were able to send one of our other admin people over, and so it was like for us, it was birthing new leaders inside of our company by being able to
I'm
attend your
shocked
conference,
that she's never done that before, because she was
I know.
amazing.
She is amazing. Yeah. So she is totally amazing. And, and I think sometimes it's like, we know that she's amazing, and you got to see how amazing she was. And oftentimes they get up in front of people and really just kind of get into it and go, right?
Yeah.
People don't always know the gifts that they have and how to use them. So it was really, really great. So,
awesome.
So having your conference, and you did something great with the conference, because it wasn't a lot about having, like, we go to all the big conventions, and we're at the conventions, and it's a lot of, vendors and vendor workshops, and you're talking about your program. And then there are times, and I do a lot of speaking at some of those, but we're talking about things beyond, things that we can talk about, different topics. But you really focused on the speaking, for have the sessions. So tell us a little bit about what got you thinking about having the conference and what you're planning for the upcoming year, because I know you're going to do it again.
Oh yeah, we're doing it again. I don't think we have a choice.
Right.
I mean, I think really at the end of the day, we had a lot of people, because, those who are in Florida know we already have an incredible convention. FPA does a fabulous job. It's the biggest homeschool convention in the country.
It is.
But it's not here. So our goal was really to look at, what does Tampa Bay homeschool need? Because there is such a unique need here. It's such a hub for homeschooling in the state. If you look at our Tri-County area, the number of people that are leaving government schools and coming into homeschooling is incredible. I can't even keep up with the numbers. They're changing so fast, from month to month. But I think the big thing about the conference was just recognizing that there was a need for it, providing a space for local co-ops and local groups to connect with families in their area, providing a space for someone like the Homeschool Hive. It's the only brick and mortar homeschool store in the entire state of Florida. And we have it right here in Tampa, for her to be able to connect in with the community and to be able to provide that resource. And also, one of the biggest things for us was recognizing the Home Education Foundation and the work that Brenda and her team have done for homeschooling in the state of Florida. People don't realize how truly blessed we are with the freedoms that we have, and the resources that are available to our kids for free. And 100% of that is because of the work that Brenda and Craig had done, and Brenda continues to do. So we really wanted to provide a platform to be able to shine the light on HEF, and the really important work that they're doing. We had that HB1 that came out in January. That could have gone very south for homeschoolers. It would have taken probably close to a decade before we saw the real effects of it. But it was the same thing when the VPK program was established in Florida. It looked great on paper initially, but now we're looking at 4-year-olds are getting standardized tests by government employees coming into their private preschools. So Brenda worked really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen for homeschooling in Florida. So just to make sure that all of those pieces come together. And the speaking was huge because that is the goal of going to a conference, is being surrounded by like-minded people who are, even if they're just a step or two of you ahead in their journey, you have something to share to the people who are behind you. And it was really cool to see some of our speakers recognize that, because we had speakers that, I mean, they're just friends of mine that I know that are homeschool leaders in the area, or people who know a lot about a certain particular aspect of homeschooling, and to give them an opportunity to recognize their gift and to share that knowledge with other people. I mean, we saw people laughing and hugging and crying and sharing stories, and it was just a really beautiful example of what community can be. So we're really excited that it was so well received, and that it really went the way that we planned, which when you're planning a big event like that is not always the way it goes.
Right. Absolutely. All twists and turns and everything else.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
there were
also,
those for sure. There was a lot of
yeah.
fires behind the scenes, but we were
Right.
able to do those very quietly.
Oh, wow. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and a great compliment for people that that attend FPEA, you know. And by the way, for people that, if you're listening, Brenda is Brenda Dickinson, and Brenda
Yes.
has been you know, up on the state capitol for 30 plus years, that she's been
Yeah.
up, really, you know, being a voice for what's possible in homeschooling in Florida. So,
Right.
and I think the other thing too is people are listening. I'm hoping that that homeschool moms, dads, that as you're listening to this, and even teenagers that want to, you know, create groups in your community, working with churches and whatever that looks like for you, that you can do this, that you're taking notes, because here you can hear how everything was kind of born out of the possibility of what was possible, really, because it was like, here's what we want to do. God paves the way, lets you do your thing and gets going.
Yeah.
Church is
Yeah.
there to work with you, and you know, and to have that. But you really looked at it from that community standpoint about what it looked like, and then being able to offer something like the Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference that is happening. And I know, again, it'll be coming up. So, you know,
Yep.
community is obviously super important to you, right? So
Right.
when you look, because for me as well, it's like, you know, it is, you know, the community. If we have a like-minded community, big things can happen. And I always look for myself. But what makes you so passionate about community? Because it's because that's, I've heard you say this several times since we've been chatting here today.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately at the end of the day, it comes down to, because that's what God called us to. He created us to be in community with him and with each other. So it just feels right. You know, it's that thing that we're striving for. I mean, it's all over scripture, you know, about unity, when God's people are together. And, you know, Hebrews 10:24-25 is one of my favorites. Let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Like that to me just shows how important it is that we are coming together, and that we do continue to make those connections, especially for our kids. You know, in this digital age that we live in, they're attached to their phones with this false sense of connection and community that's just really not there. So just to model that for them, so that they can see what it truly looks like to do life with one another. Something as simple as a friend having a baby and bringing her a meal, you know, or someone having a bad day and meeting them for a cup of coffee, and letting the kids see that and recognize, you know, those little things that we do each day for each other are the big things at the end of the day. And another side of that too is the idea of parenting beyond your capacity. Reggie Joyner, who is the creator of Orange, for people that don't know, it's a very popular children's ministry curriculum that's used. But he wrote a book, Parenting Beyond Your Capacity. And in that book, one of the things that he talks about is how, as a parent, you have to recognize that you are not all that your kid needs. You have certain gifts and talents that you can share with your children. But at the end of the day, you have to create that village so that your kids have the full support system they need. Those who are parents of teens and preteens, because it seems to be happening younger and younger, based on my 9-year-old daughter, there comes a point in your child's life where you're not the be all end all of where they're going to go for information. They want to go somewhere else. There's going to be things that happen in their life that they don't want to share with you. And that's okay. But it's so important that they have someone in their life that they can go to and get good, solid, wise counsel from. And homeschooling, I think, is one of the best ways that you can do that for your kids, because when you're creating these connections and creating this community, it's not just about the kids having a relationship facilitated, it's also about the families having relationships. If my son was in school, he'd be amongst all his classmates, and he may go to a friend's house, but he doesn't really know the mom or the dad. I don't know the mom or the dad. His friends don't know me. But as homeschoolers, we have entire families that we're friends with. My kids have aunts and uncles all over the place, right?
Right.
So when something happens and he makes a mistake or something, he needs advice and he's not comfortable coming to me, I can look across the room when we're at a SALT event and see 5 adults that I know he would feel comfortable going to, and I would feel comfortable with the advice that they're giving him. So there's just so much involved in community that helps us to live the life that God's calling us to.
That is awesome. It's so well said. Wow, this is perfect. Well, Kim, there's so much great information you gave us today. And I know when do you have a timeline for next year, 2024's event?
We do. We haven't announced it yet, but that announcement is coming very soon.
Okay.
But yes, we do.
Midsummer. Is that about right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very
Okay,
close
good.
to the same time, we'll say.
Okay,
Yep,
awesome. Very
absolutely.
good. Well,
Yep.
what we'll do then, if it's okay with you, let's come back and we'll do this again as we get closer to the event so we can
Sure.
let people know that it's happening. And
Absolutely.
I think,
And we'll have some more exciting things to share at that point too. We have some things that are in the works behind the scenes, just for the Tampa Bay community as a whole, and just for co-op leaders and administrators. There's some plans in the works for support and facilitation for them as well, that we're kind of muddling through at this point. But by the conference next year, we'll definitely be ready to talk about all those things.
Very good. Now, people that want to get in touch with you. So we may even have some of our listeners that are outside of the Tampa Bay area that are like, I want to do what you're doing. Right. So how do people reach you, for people that live in the Tampa area that want to get involved in what's happening, or they just want to find out more about what you're doing? What's the best way for people to reach you? Because I know you're on Instagram, Facebook, website. How do people reach you?
The best way, so there's a contact form on Salt of Trinity's website. That is saltoftrinity.org. And then you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Both of those are at Salt of Trinity. So any one of those avenues would work.
Okay, perfect. And we'll post that in the show notes for people so they can find you online and see what you're up to. So, well, very good. Well, we'll get back together then sometime after the first of the years. We're getting closer to the event, and we'll do this again. So, Kim, it was so great to hang out and say hey. And
you too, Dennis. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in to A+ Parents, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.